Hey guys, how are you doing? Can you see and hear me okay? Please let me know in the chat. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me okay and that the technology is working fine. So wonderful. Thank you all who have chosen to join me for another pagan happy hour. This has been really fun. I did my last one this past Friday, and I'm thinking about making it maybe more regular. We'll see how it goes. Normally, I would be doing this on a Friday, but I am flying into Chicago tomorrow, and then I'll be driving up to Wisconsin. So I'll be spending Samhain at a cabin in the woods, which should be very spooky and fun. So, hey everyone that is joining me now. And this is Pagan Happy Hour. So if you have a beverage for yourself, do please tell me in the chat what you are drinking. I have made myself an old-fashioned today. So I make a bit of a more untraditional old-fashioned when I do drink it. I do have bourbon. I think it's bullet bourbon in this. And then I have one of those fun kind of globe ice cube things that make those circular ice. And then usually I think you crush a sugar cube, but I don't have a sugar cube, so I put a little maple syrup in there. I have a cherry and a few dashes of orange bitters. So yeah, let me know what you guys are drinking right now. Let's see. I see someone's mentioning a rosemary gin and tonic. That sounds amazing. A few of you guys are drinking much healthier drinks. I see Kimberly says water with electrolytes. That sounds good. Megan is commenting a glass of red wine. I love red wine. And oh, I'm seeing lots of fun things here. Lavender tea, that sounds amazing. Lots of you guys are commenting coffee. I'm a big fan of coffee as well. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me. So today I thought it would be fun to talk about the upcoming blue moon that we have that will occur on Samhain or on Halloween night. And this is kind of a big deal, or at least I think it's a big deal to have such an interesting celestial event occurring on Samhain. And this year in particular, I think it's extra interesting because it is year 2020, the year of complete chaos. So I really feel like anything could happen this Samhain. And as we know, Samhain is the time when the veil between the two worlds, between our mundane world and the spirit world, is at its thinnest. So this is the time when you might actually experience something a bit more paranormal, a bit odd, a bit out of regular. So it is going to be an extra interesting Samhain because we have that going on, the thinning of the veil, plus we have the full moon. And not only is it a full moon, it's a blue moon as well. And you know, it's interesting. Over the years, people have done scientific studies on the effect of the full moon, or if it has any effect on our psyche. And one of the things I find, you know, odd and interesting is that, you know, a lot of scientists will say, oh, you know, the moon doesn't have any effect on us, on our brains, on our bodies. But when you talk to nurses or people who work in ERs, they're always like, oh yes, we get way more people come in on the full moon. There's a lot of activity that goes on every month during the full moon. So there's got to be something to it, right? I feel like the moon's energies really do affect us, at least in some way. And even if it is just psychological, you know, it's still affecting us, you know, and I think that's really neat. So If you're unfamiliar, a blue moon occurs when there's 2 full moons in 1 month. So in the month of October, we had our first full moon earlier in the month, and now we're having our second full moon on the 31st. So that's what makes it a blue moon. And I believe that the blue moon this year is going to be in the sign of Taurus. Now, I am not an astrology expert, but I do know that Taurus is ruled by the planet Venus. So for this particular blue moon, it's going to be tied to Venusian things. So things involving maybe love or pleasure, or also money and commerce. So pay attention during the full moon on Samhain if you're feeling kind of extra lovey-dovey to anyone or anything like that, or maybe you get some good luck and some money comes your way. That could be an indication or something that's tying the blue moon in Taurus to you. So another interesting thing that is going to be occurring is Mercury retrograde. So I believe Mercury retrograde, I think it started on October 14th, and it's going to end on November 3rd, or at least it stations direct on November 3rd, which if you're an American, you're probably aware of the importance of that particular date. So Mercury retrograde is known for messing up communications. When Mercury goes direct, it's known for kind of slowing communication down because it's gone backwards. Now it's kind of pausing and slowly starting to go the correct way around. So that's going to be really fascinating to experience both on Samhain and on November 3rd. So in Samhain, Mercury will still be in retrograde. So pay attention to any weird technology issues that might pop up. So probably not the best day to be, making a YouTube video or anything like that. And then on November 3rd, when Mercury stations direct, it's going to be very fascinating to see if it does have any effect on the American presidential election, right? Since it is known for slowing down communications, I wonder if maybe that's going to indicate that it'll take longer to count the votes, or there'll be some issue with the vote counting, or we won't know who the president is until, several days later. So I think that's definitely possible and something to pay attention to. Another astro update is it is currently Scorpio season, and Scorpio goes from around October 22nd till I think November 21st. And I do have a video that I made last year all about how to kind of embrace Scorpio season. So if you are interested in that, you can check that out on my YouTube channel if you want to learn more about Scorpio season. But yeah, I'm gonna take a break here and have a quick sip and check out some of your comments. So please feel free to message. I'm going to be taking a look at them and ask me any questions that you might have about really anything, but especially the blue moon that's coming up or Samhain that's coming up as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for your comments. I see some of you guys are talking about Scorpio season. So I definitely do recommend checking out my video from last year about Scorpio season. So a couple of you guys are asking me about my plans for the blue moon and for Samhain. So since I will be in a cabin in the woods up in Wisconsin this year, definitely a fire pit. I am a huge fan of fire pits to begin with, and that actually happens to be a very historically authentic way to celebrate Samhain this year, as the Celts would celebrate Samhain with big bonfires. Now, I personally probably won't be able to have like a huge bonfire with a ton of people or anything like that, but having a fire on Samhain is a really great way to connect with the history of this particular holiday. Another thing I tend to do is leave offerings for both my ancestors as well as the spirits and the deities. So when I think about the spirits and the deities, so the spirits of the land, that's kind of one classification. And the deities, there are many different gods and goddesses associated with Samhain. So you can really just, pick if you have any particular deities that you feel drawn towards, leaving an offering for them. And how I tend to do that is when it comes to the land spirits or offering for the gods, I usually will leave some fruit out, something like that out by a tree. So I'll cut up an apple, get some grapes, some things like that, anything that's going to be biodegradable or not harmful for the land. And then I'll go out into the woods and find a spot that I feel comfortable with, leaving the offerings at the base of a tree, spending a few moments in silence, then, saying verbally, thank you to the spirits of the land for providing. This is, of course, the last harvest festival. So we really need to thank the spirits of the land, because without them, we wouldn't have food, right? And in the Wheel of the Year, you have the 3 harvest festivals. So you start with Lunasa, the festival of grain, then you go to the autumn equinox, and that's, September 22nd. So when the pumpkins and the gourds start to come in, we're getting more of that fall food. And then finally, Samhain, which is the last of the harvest festivals. And traditionally, that is when the animals would be culled, which means they would be slaughtering the animals that they wouldn't be keeping for the winter. And then they would be preserving that meat to sustain them for the long winter. So, I personally don't eat much meat. I'm not a vegetarian or anything like that, but I tend to limit my consumption of meat. But that is something that was historically done. And so making a feast is another thing that I definitely enjoy doing during not just Samhain, but really all of the pagan festivals. I personally love to cook. I bake my own bread. I love, just kind of getting involved in cooking and baking, and it's been a passion of mine for several years. And you can actually see on my channel every once in a while I'll do like a baking or cooking video, just because it's something I personally enjoy. But yeah, if you do want to do a feast this year for Samhain, definitely focusing in on some of those seasonal foods, and those will of course be different depending on what area you live in. If you live in a climate that has, the traditional 4 seasons, then that would mean, working with plants that are harvested at this time during late October. So that's another thing. So fire pit, feast. Another thing I usually tend to do is some divination, because Samhain is a time when the veil between the 2 worlds is at its thinnest. This is a wonderful time for divination. And hold on, let me have another sip of my drink here. I feel like I'm talking a mile a minute. So yeah, so divination. If you're not aware, I've been a tarot reader for many years. I'm a professional tarot reader, and I actually do this full time. So I, do tarot readings for clients, I teach tarot for students, and then I also do YouTube. So if you're curious on how I make a living, it's those main 3 sources of income. So tarot has been an active part of my life for quite a while. And me and my friend Jamie have been working on creating our tarot deck, which is called the Key Tarot, for almost 2 years now. So we're almost done. We're sending it to the printer on November 1st, which is really exciting. And, if you're curious and you'd like to see what the tarot deck looks like, you can go to thekeytarot.com or follow us on Instagram at thekeytarot. So tarot is really my divination tool of choice. I do also occasionally work with the runes, but I am by no means an expert with the runes. I still have probably many years of study about the runes before I feel fully comfortable with them. But I've been doing tarot since I was a teenager. So I've only been taking it seriously for the past 5 years, and I've been doing it professionally as a career for maybe like 3 years, 3-4 years. But it's a wonderful divination tool, in my opinion. So I definitely plan on doing some tarot. Though, it's not necessarily the most historical divination tool to be using on Samhain. Divination among the Celts would probably be done through maybe by looking into the bonfire, right? Because Samhain is known for the bonfires, right? So you would, try and put yourself in a bit of a trance, staring at the flames and seeing if any sensations, any images, any words, anything comes through. So if you're looking for a more authentic form of divination to do on Samhain, that would be a good one. And yeah, I'm just going to take a quick peek at some of your questions. Willow asks, how do you become a professional tarot reader? There is not any one kind of school or way to go about becoming a professional tarot reader. For me personally, I have been fascinated by symbolism and art history. My major was in art history in college. So I really dug deep into understanding the history of tarot, the symbols in each of the cards. I memorized it, I learned it, and I combined it with my other esoteric knowledge. So that process took maybe a year of study before I felt fully comfortable to start, doing readings professionally. So it's really up to you. And tarot is, interestingly, a combination of that book learning, that book study where you do memorize the card meanings, you do understand the symbolism and the historical references in the deck, and then at the same time, you're also using your intuition. So those are two skills that you work on building. And those are lifelong skills. That's what I love about tarot is it is a lifelong study. There's never a moment where you feel like, oh, I know enough. There's always different things you can pull from. You might see a symbol and then a year later realize it has this alchemical significance, which takes you down this rabbit hole of understanding alchemy, which then brings you into the Kabbalah. So it's really a wonderful system. Let's see here. Mary Jane asks, do you know a good way to connect to your ancestors? It's a great question. Yeah, so for me personally, I love having an altar where I leave offerings for my ancestors. I like to put a picture of them. So usually this is my family that I actually know that have passed on as opposed to my ancient ancestors. So I usually have their photos up. I leave an offering. The offering I leave is usually based upon what they liked in life. So for example, if you have a grandmother that's passed on that has a favorite beverage or had a favorite beverage in life, I would leave that as the offering on your altar. So definitely doing that is a great way to connect with Samhain. Let's see. I see another message here saying you've said you've taught English in Europe. What languages do you speak besides English? So yeah, I graduated in the midst of the economic recession. I graduated college in 2010, so I left America for a while. I started in Korea and I taught English there for a little over a year, and then I moved to Prague in the Czech Republic and I taught English there for a year. So I know a little bit of a lot of languages, and I also studied abroad in Japan during college, so I know a little Japanese, a little Korean, a little Czech, and then I did French in high school. I know a little French, so I'm not fluent in any one foreign language, but I do enjoy traveling and enjoy learning other languages. So I see someone here mentions using a pendulum to contact ancestors or candle magic. that is also a really fun way. A pendulum you can even kind of use like a Ouija board. You can take a piece of paper, put yes, no, and then put the alphabet letters, and then use your pendulum like that. Though, a lot of people are a bit nervous, a bit scared of, Ouija boards and Ouija board-like things, but I'm personally not too freaked out by that method. So that's a good, way to contact your ancestors. And Samhain is a wonderful time to be doing something like that. Let's see. I see one person mentions, is it a good time to manifest at this full moon? Now that is really interesting because historically the full moon has been tied to, I don't want to say like insanity, but really intense emotional and psychological experiences. So you have to think about, are you ready? Are you prepared for that? And this is, in a way, a lot of what the moon card in tarot represents. If you look at the moon card in tarot, it has a dog and a wolf, and then a crooked path in between. So that idea is we're constantly walking the crooked path between our subconscious, our uncivilized mind that's represented by the wolf in the tarot card, and our conscious or civilized self, which is represented by the domesticated dog. And as long as we maintain strength, both physically and mentally, we're able to walk that crooked path. We're able to dip a toe into the arcane, into the occult, and not let it take us whole. But it is a tightrope that you have to walk. So when it comes to manifestation during a full moon or any type of intense spiritual work on a full moon, you have to be careful because that is energy that is going to pull you into, something that is more subconscious, something that is more ethereal, something that is more otherworld. Do you currently feel, mentally and physically strong enough to handle that? If yes, then I say go for it. The full moon is a wonderful time to be doing divination and performing spells and things like that, doing rituals, because you're more likely then than at other times to have a very intense experience. However, if you're feeling like, I don't think I can handle anything extra on my plate right now, and in the year 2020, I wouldn't blame you, maybe you don't want to do too much during the full moon, and especially maybe toning it down this blue moon that's occurring on Samhain. So you do have to be, careful. I mean, the moon, the word loon is the root of the word lunacy, right? And there have been many people that have taken things too far. So you have to be a bit more careful when it comes to doing occult or esoteric activities on the full moon. I see another person's mentioning, with the full moon on Samhain, would that be a good time to work with the Fae? So I am not a full expert on Celtic paganism. I'm fairly new into the Celtic pagan tradition. But what I do know about the Fae is you have to be careful. The Fae are not either good or bad, but they are a bit of that trickster spirit mentality, right? So you should be very cautious. They are not like the Tinkerbell we see in modern pop culture when it comes to representation of the Fae. A really good representation of the Fae is from the book, I think it's Dr. Strange and Mr. Norrell. It was also a TV show, and I thought they did a really good job portraying how the Fae actually are. So yes, you can still work with the Fae, but don't unless you know what you're doing. Now, historically, the Celts would leave offerings for the Fae outside their home. And this is a time when the Fae would be able to cross over into our realm because the veil between the two worlds is very thin. So, leaving an offering for them would be a wonderful thing to do on Samhain. I think that's something I might even consider doing. So yeah, like I see some of you guys are commenting here just to be very respectful of the Fae and be ready. So exactly, that's how you want to approach it. So yeah, I'm just gonna check out your comments here while I am taking another sip. Okay. I see someone asks, what are some ways to celebrate Samhain for baby witches? So this is a great question. If you are new to paganism or new to witchcraft, this is going to be a very intense time. Samhain is on a blue moon, so you're going to be feeling a lot of energies. And I think just taking a moment to pause and recognize that is going to be very beneficial, because when you're new to this path, what we're doing is we are opening up our intuition so that we can experience more than everyday people do. So keeping a journal is wonderful, and really taking note of any sensations you might feel on Samhain. If there are any interesting synchronicities, any weird paranormal events, jotting that all down, I think, is a great thing to do for Samhain, starting to get more comfortable with the energies. I would definitely recommend spending some time outdoors in nature during the night of Samhain, observing the moon, seeing how it makes you feel, maybe even doing a little bit of a meditative practice. If you feel comfortable, maybe leaving some offerings for either your ancestors or the spirits or the gods that you might feel connected to. Those are all, great things to do when you're starting out. Let's see. I see Jennifer is asking, I had planned a moon cleansing of my deck. Should I wait then? Oh, I would. I think it would be so fun to cleanse your deck under the light of the blue moon on Samhain. That's a great thing to do. You can also create moon water. So leaving a bowl of water or a mason jar of water, either outside or by a windowsill where the moon's rays are going to be touching it. And that moon water, you can either just drink it the next day and see how it makes you feel. You could use it in some glamour magic spells. You could use it in a ritual later on. So there's lots of things you can do with moon water, and this moon water is going to be extra special. So I definitely plan on collecting moon water. I'm personally not a super crystal person, but if you do love crystals, I definitely recommend charging your crystals under the light of the blue moon this Samhain. So those are a few, small activities you can consider for this blue moon. So another interesting thing I wanted to mention too, because this full moon, which will be a blue moon, is occurring on Samhain, it's really interesting for those of you who are fascinated by pagan history, because Samhain is really a Celtic pagan festival, and the Celts measured time by the moon. So the new day would begin with moonrise, not sunrise. So quite a bit different than how we measure time. Before what we consider the Celts and before the time of the Druids, you have the Bronze Age and the creators of Stonehenge, which a lot of people kind of misinterpret. They think the Druids made Stonehenge, but actually Stonehenge occurred many hundreds of years before. Now, Stonehenge is aligned to the solstices. So the people who created Stonehenge were more concerned with the movement of the sun. But the Celts were very much interested, maybe even more so, than the cycles of the moon. So they would measure time by the moonrise and the various moon cycles. So I think the earliest known Celtic calendar, I believe it's the Coligny calendar. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. But I believe it's currently housed in the Palais des Arts in Lyon, France. It's a series of bronze tablets, and it would really kind of show how the Celts measured time. It's from around the 1st century BCE. And it begins each new month with the full moon, and the Celts actually divided the month into fortnights instead of weeks, so into 2-week chunks. And then they divided their year into 13 months, which makes sense because there are 13 moon cycles in one year, which is why here at Samhain we have a blue moon, because that's the rare occurrence where there is 2 full moons in 1 month, because there are 13 full moons total in one calendar year. So this is a really great time to connect with the energies of the moon, because not only are you doing that, you're also connecting with the worldview of the ancient Celts. And if that is something you're interested in, if you are interested in Celtic paganism, then this particular Samhain is going to be really powerful for you. So I'm just going to take another glance at your comments here. Let me see. I see David here is mentioning making some moon water this full moon. That's a wonderful idea. I'm going to be doing that too. I think I'm going to actually use the moon water in part to like use in some glamour rituals and kind of washing my face and things like that. It should be interesting to see if I feel any more vibrant after that. Let me see. Okay. I see Kim is asking, do you have any good books on Celtic paganism? I think The Way of the Druids by Penny Billington is a good start. There are, the Celtic myths and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but the Magbion, it's like Magibion, I think. Always starting with the myths is a great place. But understanding Celtic paganism is something I am still new at. And it's very difficult because we don't have many historic sources. Unfortunately, the Druids didn't really write anything down. So the sources we do have come from the Romans. And Julius Caesar wrote extensively about the Celts and his conquest of Gaul. Several other Romans like Tacitus have written as well, but we don't really know that much about the Celts from themselves, and in part that was because the Druids believed in the oral tradition, and they thought that things were more powerful if they were passed down verbally. And I think that's, in a way, it's almost like romantic. I find it like just very, very kind of beautiful in a way that these stories were passed down generation upon generation, and the Druids were the ones who were the intellectual elite. They would memorize and they would recite, and they were great storytellers. On top of that, they were the astronomers, they were the healers, they were the military strategists. They held so many amazing roles, and it's so sad that that information was lost even before really the Christians came. I mean, with the Roman conquests, we really lost most of everything. And then when Christianity took hold, we lost everything else. So all we have now is really the accounts of the Romans, because they wrote it down, the archaeological information we have, which isn't that much. We do have obviously some. And then we have the folklore, which has persisted, especially in Ireland. Speaking of Samhain, the Romans never conquered Ireland, and they never tried, which also kind of makes you think why. You know, like, I know the Romans thought that the Celts were fearsome warriors, and that's definitely something to it. But they did, you know, get to Britain, but they never even tried entering the mysterious island to the west. So I love that about Ireland, that they were not kind of conquered by the Romans. And of course, you know, several centuries later, we do have the Viking conquests, where they did, of course, enter Ireland. But that whole history, I think, is so fascinating. And even though we don't have that much about the Celts, there's still so much we can glean from the myths, from the folklore, from the stories. And I would love nothing more than to be able to go to Britain and Ireland and experience, you know, these stories and talk to people about the folklore, see the stone circles, experience their energies. I went to England when I was much younger, around 13, but now that I'm much older, I need to go back. I'll, of course, take you guys with me. I'm sure I would do many videos. But that's definitely a goal of mine. I would love to go to Britain and Ireland. Well, look at that. We are almost done with the old-fashioned, so we should probably end this live chat soon. But thank you guys so much for joining me. And I would have loved to do this a bit closer to Samhain. I wanted to do this on Friday, but like I said, I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. So I really want to wish you all a wonderful Samhain. I hope you enjoyed this chat, and I cannot wait to hear all about your Samhain experiences. And thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do, and this community is really keeping me sane in the year 2020. So blessed be. I hope you have a wonderful blue moon. I hope you have a wonderful Samhain, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.